We've got an apology from Councillor Hamill, who isn't able to make it this morning. So I'm happy to move that. Seconded Councillor Taylor. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. We've got the confirmation of minutes is starred. Does anybody want to unstar the forward planning schedule or need any questions regarding the monthly financial report? So we might leave those three things starred. Would anybody like to move the confirmation minutes, the forward schedule and the monthly report? Move Councillor Gates, seconded Councillor McDonald. All in favour? Carried. Lovely. Let's move on to 6.2, the making of an animal management amendment. Number 1, Local Law 2002 Animal Management Amendment, Subordinate Local Law Number 1, 2022. Director Twine, welcome.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. We'll have Joe Fury-Lopez, who's the Acting Manager of Health and Reg Services, come out if you've got any questions and to provide some context for why we're bringing this report before you. But you'll recall that we have foreshadowed this previously, given the interest from the community in the ongoing issues that we have with animal management in the city. And you will recall we had some serious attacks earlier in the year in the north of the city, but it's a perennial problem across the entire city. So in consultation with the community, which is detailed in attachment 2 in the report, you'll see that we have strong community support to uplift their animal management strategies, tactics, and indeed the fines applied to various misdemeanours which are occurring. Do you want to add anything to that, Joe?
Really, the amendments to the local law that we have undertaken is to make it easier to understand. Some of the key components of the amendments include noise nuisance laws, reducing some of that red tape by removing some of those permit types that are covered off by state legislation or through other permits, so reducing that duplication, and updating containment and enclosure requirements for animals as well, and also the increase to penalty units to deter things like dog attacks and to actually increase those fine amounts for the community members that are doing the wrong thing. And we also included in the amendments is the koala habitat area that the state government has outlined, and we have additionally added in requirements for enclosures for dogs, etc., to ensure the safety of those koala area habitat places.
Okay. Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chairman. Through you, my recollection was that Council, when this issue was raised at Lifestyle and Community, and I think Councillor Vorster and myself were pushing really hard for an increase in the penalties associated with having dogs on leash, because there was no action that we could take against a dog owner who was involved in an attack. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councillor.
That's correct. So the object was to increase the penalties to make sure that dogs were leashed so that animals and people were safer in our community. So, and at the time, I think we recommended 5 penalty units, and the officers persuaded us to take it back a peg so that we got endorsement from the state. So all I really wanted to say was that I'm pleased to see that the state has endorsed the uplift and all of the other measures that have been taken in terms of fencing and protection of koalas. They're great. So congratulations to the officers on getting to this point where we can adopt those changes.
Did anybody else have any other questions? So, Councillor Gates, did you have a question, sorry, Councillor Patterson?
Through you, Chair, I had a question regarding the change of definition of offence and why what that entails and what that creates. And is that then the onus on an owner to have a fence of a certain requirement in that area? Just wasn't quite sure.
Through the chair, thank you. The enclosure requirements have been tightened to ensure that the fence is a proper fence rather than electronic enclosure, such as the wiring that sits under the ground or a GPS collar and that kind of thing. It makes it a physical barrier that the animal can't get over, under or through.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Councillor Gates, did you want to move it?
Happy to move it,
Yeah.
Chairman.
And I just wanted to say in regards to the penalties, I think what we've, with the adoption of this, which I think we've got clear community support, that was pretty clear in regards to the response from the public advertising, is that rather than just having a one penalty unit that kind of covers a whole series of actions, we've now got a series, 3 different penalties depending on whether or not it's a dog attack that involves an animal or a human being injured. Or, and then there's the animal found wandering at large, which is the lower of the fines, and then the failure to keep an animal under effective control, which is kind of in the middle. So I think that allows a little bit of discretion from the officers that have to attend these complaints in regards to dogs being out and about. So I think that that's something that the community clearly is happy to see, and so I don't think this is in any way about the city trying to increase the penalties to get revenue. I think it's the city trying to have penalties that reflect the severity of dog owners' actions in regards to not controlling their animals. Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, just a question to the director, and this has been an ongoing issue, and you know, I know in my division, as you know, we get a lot of complaints about dog off leads, dog attacks, etc. It doesn't matter what penalty you put in place, it's about the policing. So I know the questions that I'll be asked, well, you know, it's fine that councils put these in place, but what about the policing? Could you just explain, in the last budget, the increase in officers that we've got on the ground?
I'll actually defer to Jo because she's more across the detail. But what I will preface her comments to say that we have been listening to these issues regarding the enforcement, and I think we've responded with a more comprehensive way of dealing with this. And I recall, I think earlier in the year, in your division, Councillor McDonald, we specifically took some animal management officers to do some consultation, and the feedback from the community members in Division 13 was really positive on that trial, as it was, of an additional out of normal hours response, which I think has been a lot of the problem to date, is that the response has been limited to business hours, if you like. So our trial into more times when people might be walking dogs, etc., has proven to be a bit of a hit. Yeah. But sorry, I hope I haven't stolen your thunder there, Jo.
Only a little bit. Through the chair, yes, we were fortunate enough to receive an additional 4 animal management officers for this financial year. That takes us up to 29 animal management inspectors and animal management officers. What we have introduced is we have been conducting blitzes in hotspot areas and then reporting back the results of those. And they have been very, very successful in issuing PINs and also in, you know, deterring those members of the public that are doing the wrong thing. We also have Saturday and Sunday patrols with animal management officers and QPS, and obviously that assists us in the way that we can interact with members of the public. We do have a lot of people who tend to run off, are difficult to have conversations with, and by having QPS accompany our animal management officers, it has certainly been a good outcome for the city.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for the question. Would anybody like to speak against? Right. Would you like to close, Councillor Gates?
Thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to raise one more point, sorry, as a result of that last response. Isn't, as part of the One City project, there a view that our compliance officers will have the ability to work over multiple disciplines? So, for example, someone in development compliance will soon be trained sufficiently to issue penalties for dog breaches as well. So that is something that we were informed of in recent weeks. Am I correct in my recollection?
Through the chair, Councillor Gates, that is correct. So as we move towards a new model, the thinking in the new model, it's not here yet, is that we're able to agglomerate a number of the different streams of compliance officers into a larger compliance body where people will be multi-skilled and be able to multitask according to different disciplines.
Terrific. So in closing, councillors, I think we've got a really good outcome here today. People that are responsible pet owners will never be impacted. So keep your dog where he should be and keep your dog on a leash and do the right thing, and there's no impact at all. I think we all get, people will be quite shocked that the penalties for having your dog off leash are raised so significantly, but given that we can't do anything about the owners of irresponsible dogs in terms of dog attacks, and I mean my own husband's been hospitalised twice from a dog attack from a leash-free dog, and we've seen little puppies killed by larger dogs, and it's time that we as a city, I believe, did something to address in the only way that we can that concern, and that has been by reviewing this local law. It is a lot more simple to understand, so well done officers on the other parts of the local law that have been amended, and I think in all we've got to a good place, so that's it.
All in, so do we have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Pauline Young. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Elton. And Sarah joins us for the council plan, Q3 progress report. So, but you don't have a presentation, you're only here for questions. Is that right, Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Has anybody saved up a question for Sarah? Councillor Gates, welcome.
I have to admit I haven't read this really thoroughly, but I had a quick scan last night before I went out for the city. I noted that you highlighted where the measures of success didn't quite meet the previous survey, but were there instances where we got a better result? And why weren't they highlighted, if so?
Through the Chair, the report currently includes responses against all the measures where we have latest data. The vast majority are on track and they're green, and that's where we actually are doing as well as expected or better than expected. The report, I guess, attempts to identify for councillors those areas where we need to focus our attention and improvement over the next period. So, but happy to include more information on those that we're doing above average.
Yeah, I just think it's important to note where we're doing well as where we might have, in the community's view, not done quite so well. So it's just a comment.
Any other questions, councillors? Would anybody like to move? Oh, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Through you, so, and again on those points where we've identified where we have seen a decrease. Regarding the perception of safety, I was curious whether we want to share that information with the state and how much we feel that that is a reflection of what we are capable of doing versus, you know, there's limitations to what we can do regarding safety.
Through the Chair. Obviously, the safety, it is perception of safety. It's not a rating around crime that's happening in the city. And certainly, as a city, we will be advocating for improvements around safety. But certainly what I can do is, through the Chair, take that question on notice and work with the business area to provide an update for you.
Thank you. Would anybody like to move it? Moved Councillor Patterson, seconded Councillor Pauline Young. Councillor Patterson, would you like to speak to it? Oh. Anybody would like to speak against it? Right, would you like to close? Councillor Taylor's already voted in favour of it, so would everybody else like to vote in favour of it? Carried, unanimous. Now, are there any other general business items other than the podium conversation that we need to have? The lectern? No.
If I send my photo through, can they put it on the screen so everyone can have a laugh?
Yeah. Do you
Might
have
as
the
well.
ability to accept a photo from Councillor Gates?
This is
Perfect.
very funny. Who do I send it to?
DBI item of requirements of new property for.
Well, no, I think it's the fact that we're an inclusive city where everybody needs to be able to be seen and heard. and we're represented by a diverse group of councillors. Some of them are tall and some of them are not so tall. And sometimes they stand behind a podium and can't be seen, sometimes.
I've got it here, but if you can put in the email address so that it gets to me. I'm sure, I'm telling you, you'll enjoy this
Yeah.
at my expense. It's good to be able to market yourself.
So, but we don't need to enter it into the minutes though, do we, Councillor Gates? We don't need to enter it into the minutes of the meeting, do we? Yeah.
That was at the citizenship ceremonies. And it was taken by the state member, John Paul Mangle, who said, can anyone spell the deputy? And he posted, oh. Well, they were in the front row and the theatre starts now. But yeah, it's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? No, I asked for a new podium for when I'm acting mayor.
So anyway, I think that
And
there's
you
a
lectured.
lot of support from your fellow colleagues in regards to the city acquiring a
A shorter lectern.
shorter lectern, you know, because we're an inclusive city where everybody needs to be seen and not only seen but also heard. Rightio, I reckon with that we'll close the meeting at 9:22.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought it was.